Hi everyone, I'm Kevin Phoenix from the Illuminerdi. The film,
Hi.
the film is hilarious. Everyone's great. I was like laughing my ass off there the whole time. Like,
Oh, good.
I was wondering, like, being such a fun film, what was the like hardest, or like in terms of like not breaking, not staying in character, what was the hardest part about getting through the film in that sense? Or like, what was
Without
the
break.
yeah, what was like the scene that was hardest to get through without laughing?
Oh God. Which one? Which one? All of them. Um, what was one that I couldn't stop laughing? I think the one that resonates the most in my head is the first scene when Vivi and I are in the car. I love that scene so much. It's so fun. And oh God, I just remember shooting that scene like it was yesterday. So I think all the scenes were pretty hard to get through without laughing because the writing was so brilliant and grounded in its comedy to begin with. And then the song allowed us to play so much. So we were able to surprise each other with a lot of fun improv and especially when Jimmy Bellinger is on set. It's a very hard day to get through without laughing. So I'll say that too.
Yes, he's a master of improv, and you don't know what's going to come out of his mouth. But yeah, I mean, Song and the writers were so generous in allowing us to improv. So sometimes it was just like a pleasant surprise that would come out, and you'd just be like, "Oh, that just came out of her mouth. Okay, keep it together, keep it together." But the opening with all the stuff in the car, there was a lot of permission to play with that, and we knew those scenes so well because they were part of our audition. So we
Mhm.
really like got to make it our own, and it was fun. We got to do a whole bunch of takes and figure out like where was the direction of the story going.
Awesome. Yeah, the first scene is yeah, you immediately captured me like right away. It was just like it kind of popped out of nowhere, but all of a sudden the dialogue starts going and then the back and forth. It's so good. It's so I loved it.
Thanks.
Um for Sung on the directing side, what was what was harder, kind of like getting them to fall in line or kind of like wrangling them in when they when they get going?
Oh no, no, no. Working with VyVy and Brooke, that was the easiest part of making the film. They let me worry about other things because they knew their characters so much, and I was really leaning on them because we had so limited resources in making the film. I felt, the currency or the equity that we had, our superpower essentially was, Brooke and VyVy. Without them bringing life to Karen and Lucy, we had no chance. So, I was taught early in my career is that casting is everything in a film. And as a director, if you just cast the right actors for the parts, that makes my job easier because all I have to do is call action and they go for it. So, their use of improv, the chemistry that they had developed away from the camera, and becoming friends and bringing truth to the relationship between Karen and Lucy. That's something that, you can't direct. You actually are really dependent on the dedication of, the actors to do that on their own. And there was nothing to rein in. It was like every day was a joy. They're so professional. They're so just as people, they're amazing to be around. So, they set the bar. It's like it starts from the top, and if the actors come in and they have a great energy and they treat the rest of the cast and the crew with respect, it just makes for just a wonderful working experience. So, without these two ladies, the movie would have not worked. We had no chance. So, I'm so grateful to have both of them, to and what they contributed. Without them, again, it's like, the movie would not be what it is.
I definitely see that. I definitely agree. But speaking a bit on the kind of the constraints, it's an indie movie and everything like that. I saw some of your interviews, and then I on my second watch, I started to notice like, yeah, there was no ice cream in the shop, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And like like watching, I would have never picked up on that. So like stuff like that, like kind of working around the stuff that you don't have, but kind of I guess implying that it's there. Was that something that you had in mind, or was it something that kind of came naturally just from? like the situation and the performances.
Well, when you're used to having nothing, you make everything work out. And again, that's why I had to lean on the actors. It's like the reason you didn't notice that there was no ice cream in the shop is because your focus is on these two ladies and Herschel and Jimmy and all the characters that are in front of the screen. Is that, because their performances are so powerful, you're drawn to them and you're able to kind of ignore the rest of it. And yeah, I mean, Kevin, it's so scary, going to set and realizing, hey, it's an ice cream shop with no ice cream, right? So, and I think limitations, if you have the right people on board for the right reasons, those limitations spawn, very creative ideas, because everyone is working to make the best out of it, right? So I think because of the people that were a part of it, we got through, and it's great that you didn't notice that there was no ice cream until I mentioned it. But that's the spirit of independent filmmaking too, right? Is like you make do with what you don't have, right? And you find a way, and again, if you don't have the actors to bring that scene to life, from the paper, it's like you have no shot. That's when you start noticing everything. When the acting is bad, it's when you start noticing all the flaws. So, um, yeah.
And also huge shout out to like our art department too, who like, still distracts your eye with, we've got colorful sprinkles and beautiful other things in the background. So you don't necessarily realize, yeah, we don't have ice cream, but you've got all these other elements that imply we have ice cream at this shop. They did such a good job. There was so much attention to detail.
Speaking of the shop, you did have the shaky shiver there. I was wondering what that tasted like, or what was that made out of?
So my direction to the art department was to make it look like diarrhea. Like the more diarrhea-esque it looked like, that was what I was going for. But it was made out of chocolate ice cream and a whole bunch of like nonsense. There was like, chocolate syrup and stuff. But we had one box of ice cream, Kev. Like we could only afford one box of ice cream, and um, that tells you what kind of resources we had. But
It made it work. You made it work.
thank you.
Uh, I noticed like early on in the car scene when you mentioned Karen's ex-boyfriend, there was like that quick score that came up, and it came back in the end. I was wondering how important, like, and then throughout the film too, kind of the score really kind of keeps a tone going, keeps it like carries it over and like accentuates it. How focused were you on like implementing like the right score into the film?
Well, the score was created by Timo Chen, an old friend of mine, and just a wonderful, wonderful composer, film composer. And that was really his idea, he felt like, every character needed like a thematic kind of melody and, to mix like kind of this jaka jaka bong bong kind of like, I don't know what you would call that. It's like, like 70s like adult like B movie performing kind of score, and it was really his idea. It's like to set up Roger Bang's, I guess, introduction, and yeah, it's all Timo Chen. That was all Timo Chen's idea. Yeah.
Uh, uh, what a great thing about the film though is like it's that mashup of horror and comedy, and it definitely leans a little more in the comedy side, but it's not like you skimp down the horror elements, especially with like the practical effects and stuff like that. This question is for Brooke. That transformation scenes, like you get that American Werewolf feel. I was wondering what your
Yeah.
preparation was for that scene.
Oh, I started by watching, I think I've seen every werewolf transformation like known to man on like in film and TV, which was great fun for me. I mean, American Werewolf in London is one of my favorite movies. So I was very happy to research that. And then we worked with this beautiful movement coach before we started shooting, and we were in a room with her and kind of exploring doing these different movement exercises like in our monsters characters. So there came a lot from that. But the question that I was like, oh, right, is being a female werewolf. You know, you don't see that as much. I think we're seeing that a bit more, especially like in the past year or so. And I was like, what does that mean? Because you have the moon and the cycles of the moon and being female. And I was like, what is that all about? So I kind of got a bit woo-woo with that, and like kind of that was my in. And then I think the prosthetics helped a lot because we shot that in segments. So I think we started with my arm, I think, and with like the hand, and then we would shoot that, and then I would go back into prosthetics and do like part of the face. So as Lucy is transforming into a werewolf into that scene, me as Brooke also felt like she was transitioning slowly into a werewolf as well with the different like sections of the prosthetics. So that helped a lot as well.
She put
Uh,
her heart and soul into that transformation because she was on the ground screaming. Like her voice was blown after that. I remember we were like having tea together. I was like, Brooke, but it was so well done. Like I was supposed to be scared watching her, but I was like, wow, this is like a tour de force performance.
I definitely
It
agree.
was fun.
Like yeah, that guttural, like when you hit this like back arch, and I was just like, oh dang, what hit her? Like it was great. It was great.
Yeah, it was very guttural. That's a very good way to describe it, because then you think about your like bones are literally breaking and shifting and like you know what I mean? So, that would be so painful if it was happening in real life. So, yeah.
On kind of on the same note, like VyVy, you had like multiple zombie performances. My favorite though was when you pushed the button and rolled down the window. There was like a lot of attitude in that one. Like I don't know why that one just made me laugh so hard. But what were
Thank you.
your inspirations for your zombie performances?
Yeah, I think we all wanted to turn it on its head too, because she does start out as like very bumbling and slow, and then you start to realize, oh, I think there's a little more going behind the eyes than you think, and then you're gonna spoiler, like you see that there's the turn where she goes real fast and she's close to getting Lucy, but yeah, no, I think it was just more, yeah, you wanted to show that there was like a little bit of intelligence still. And so when Lucy gets so confident, hyper confident that she's fine, like you blocked her in the car, we're good. No, no, no. I'm still after you. Even though I'm going very, very slowly.
How fun was that? Like just dancing around her while she was chasing you, Brooke? Like that just looked like it was way too much fun.
It was way too much fun. If I remember correctly, the song was just like, the camera's here, just, you know, just go, just play. And so I did. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know what made it into the movie, but there was like push-ups at one point, and I definitely know the ballet made it into the movie. And we had a lot of fun with that segment for sure.
I wanted to get her real bad, but I was like, no, we're still in slow zombie mode. Still in slow zombie mode.
My next question is for Sung. You've worked with a ton of directors over your career. I wonder, what have you taken away from them that like you used to for your directorial debut?
Um, I would um refer to a couple of directors, great directors that I worked with in the past, and what, you know, I guess the tools that they've given me in my director's toolbox. I worked with this iconoclast, this gentleman named Walter Hill, who directed 48 Hours. He did Brewster's Millions. He worked with, Peckinpah. He's living, American legend. And, he taught me, you know, that, a director's job is to hire people that are smarter and better at departments than you. And so, again, I give credit to my cast and the crew, because there are things that you just as a director that you do not know. So you're really leaning on, departments and your talent and, the prop department and costumes, because, and, you can only do so much. So, that idea of leaning on people and not having to like take credit for everything, like and putting your ego to the side. It's like you're only one person, you can only do so much. If you can hire the right people, then your job just becomes easier and easier, right? And then I had the opportunity to work with Robert Rodriguez, and he was a director that, share this not only passion and enthusiasm for filmmaking, but the enthusiasm to share information. Like he's an open book. Like when I'd ask him, like, hey, that shot and in El Mariachi, like, how did you do that for like no money? And he would pull out his computer and go, here you go, here you go. Like, what do you want to know? And that was my approach with Shaky Shivers, is to share everything. Like if everybody that's working on the film, they know the script, they know my story boards, they know my Bible, they know my inspirations, and everything is available to them in terms of like what is in my head, right, and what I'm going for, then we're all on the same page. Like I don't need to hide that. And then, also nurturing like other people's dreams is like, if you want to be a director, there are people on the crew that they aspire to do that. It's like, let me show you. If you want to be a writer, let me show you the early drafts. Let me show you, audition tapes if you're an actor. Like just be an open resource, and I think that's really, that was again like, our superpower on this film, because we had nothing, and we were shooting there in the height of the pandemic. So to be to set that kind of environment of, like openness and, I think also for me, like, gratitude, right? And just, just share, just because there's no secrets in this business. Filmmaking is very pragmatic. If you try to hoard these ideas and then your ego comes in, right? And I think if you approach it like these, the people work for me, it doesn't work. You know what I mean? Especially on a film like that, it does not work. So I would say those two filmmakers have been, very instrumental in how like I approach filmmaking. And I'm sure it's going to evolve, but that was like my foundation and that basic North Star of like, okay, what can I emulate, right? That is positive from them. So,
Awesome. I love that.
yeah.
That's my time. Thank you, everyone. The film is hilarious. Can't wait for people to see it on the 21st. All
Thank
right.
you, Kevin.
Thanks,
Kevin.
Kevin.
Appreciate it.